Ah, The Rocketeer. What an underrated film this really is. The Rocketeer was adapted from a comic book by Dave Stevens, a graphic novel that I actually own. It was adapted into a fun, action-packed adventure set in the 1930s about a down-on-his-luck stunt pilot who is testing a GB racer plane prior to entering into the Nationals competition, only for things to go very wrong when a car chase between the FBI and gangsters causes his plane to crash land, ending any hopes of flying in the Nationals. But all isn't lost for Cliff Secord and his genius mentor Peavy when they stumble across a rocket pack hidden in one of their dusty old planes by the gangsters fleeing the FBI. As it turns out, the rocket pack was stolen from billionaire Howard Hughes and later hidden at the airfield, but the gangsters have simply been hired by Hollywood movie star Neville Sinclair to steal the rocket pack and bring it to him. Why? Well, I'll tell you in a bit, but if you haven't seen The Rocketeer and don't want it to be spoiled, then I suggest you turn the review off, go watch the film, and then come back. Anyway, after Cliff and Peavy find the rocket pack, Cliff has an idea to try and make some money flying with it so that they can rebuild their plane, but the only thing he's going to do is fly into trouble. Dun 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 dun. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, don't hurt me, sorry.
The Rocketeer was directed by Joe Johnston, who started life in the film industry as a concept artist and effects technician on the original Star Wars film. He's also the co-creator of the Boba Fett design along with Ralph McQuarrie, and I'm certain that this shot from The Mandalorian is a nod to this, as it's pretty similar to this shot from The Rocketeer. Johnston had one director credit to his name prior to The Rocketeer, which was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Not a bad start to your directing career, really, is it? He went on to direct films such as The Pagemaster, the first Jumanji, and Jurassic Park 3. It was in part directing the period movie The Rocketeer that Johnson was selected to direct MCU's Captain America The First Avenger, which I think is also a pretty decent film. The Rocketeer does have that 1930s Indiana Jones look to it, which it should have because Johnston was a visual effects and art director on Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Temple of Doom. This is a film that I have always enjoyed going back and watching, and have done ever since I was 7 years old when it was released in June 1991. Although the film did receive positive reviews from critics upon release, plans for the Rocketeer sequels were abandoned after the film underperformed at the box office, grossing only $46 million on a $35 million budget. You could say it was slightly unlucky because of when it was released, the same month as City Slickers and Robin Hood Prince of Thieves and The Naked Gun 2.5. Terminator 2 was also released a month later.
Chill out, dickwad.
Along with Boys in the Hood and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
No way!
It's also been said that another contributing factor to this is the cast, which wasn't considered to be star-studded at the time, which I think is crazy if you look at who's in this film.
Don't mind if I do!
Such as Billy Campbell in the starring role as Cliff Secord, aka The Rocketeer, Alan Arkin as Peavy, Jennifer Connelly as Jenny Blake, Cliff's actress girlfriend who was later kidnapped by the villainous actor Neville Sinclair, played brilliantly by James Bond himself, Timothy Dalton. The cast is rounded up with Paul Savino as Eddie Valentine, the mob boss, and Terry O'Quinn as Howard Hughes, the inventor of the rocket pack. The musical score was composed by James Horner, and it is fantastic. It is amongst one of my favourites along with Star Trek 2 and 3, Aliens and Willow. James Horner's score certainly has that swashbuckling feel to it, as well as introducing a lot of 1930s tones. James Horner was certainly one of the best composers in the business. He's up there with Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams. He went on to score films such as Braveheart and Titanic, and he is truly missed in the film industry. The big twist in this film is that Neville Sinclair is revealed to be a Nazi spy. The character is actually original to this movie and was based upon real-life actor Errol Flynn. In a 1980 biography about Errol Flynn, written by Charles Hyam, it was claimed that Flynn himself was a Nazi spy, something that has been refuted by some of Flynn's closest friends and subsequent biographers. Hyam himself did admit that there was no evidence of this. This formed the basis of the Neville Sinclair character. Another slight twist in this film is that Eddie Valentine and his crew quickly change sides when learning that Sinclair is a spy and fight alongside the FBI against the Nazis at Griffith Observatory. I do love this scene. Look at how this lad stood here. Look at him. The film itself is a brilliant throwback to the serials of the 1930s and 40s, with the lead character of Cliff Secord becoming something of a reluctant hero. He is constantly out of his depth, but does triumph in the end as he is aided by many others such as Peavy and Howard Hughes. It is obvious to say that he isn't your typical all-American superhero like Superman or Spiderman who go out of their way to help the little people. He's wearing the rocket pack almost for selfish reasons to earn money to rebuild his plane, but soon finds himself in a world of trouble because of how sore sought after the rocket pack is, mainly to the Nazis. This is brilliantly illustrated, literally, in a propaganda film that Howard Hughes shows him and Peavy. Cliff is also a bit neglectful of his girlfriend Jenny by not really supporting her acting career. His arc is not the little person who steps up to save the world, although he does kind of do that by not letting the Nazis get hold of the rocket pack, but comes to realise how much Jenny means to him and how much he loves her. It is, in a way, a love story. Cliff Secord is a flawed but relatable character. He's your everyman, and he ends up using the rocket pack to help defeat the baddies.
Son of a bitch will fly.
After Neville Sinclair learns of the Rocketeer's identity by overhearing Cliff himself telling Jenny all about it on a film set, he then hatches a plan that ends up with him kidnapping Jenny to draw Cliff out. At the same time, the gangsters are getting close to finding him as well. There is a great setup in the opening scene of the film that pays off brilliantly in the climax, and it's simply Cliff's chewing gum, which is Beeman's chewing gum, considered a lucky gum for pilots. Right at the start of the film, Cliff sticks his chewing gum to the tail of the plane for luck, which Peavy removes, only for the plane to end up crash landing, pretty much destroying their chances of flying in the Nationals. Later in the film, there is a scuffle in a diner that is shaped like a dog and is actually based upon a real building. Brilliant production design right there. Anyway, during this scuffle between Cliff the patron and the gangster goons, a gun goes off with the bullet ricocheting off the rocket, which creates a hole, causing it to leak fuel. As Cliff needs to use the pack to go and rescue Jenny quite quickly, Peavy needs to come up with a fast way to fix the problem, so he sticks Cliff's gum over the hole. A temporary solution that works. Then jumping to the end of the film, following a fistfight between Cliff and Neville Sinclair on the flight deck of a Zeppelin, Cliff is forced to give up the pack in order to save Jenny. But before Cliff slides the rocket along the floor to Sinclair, he removes the gun, exposing the hole, allowing the fuel to leak. As Sinclair flies away saying,
I miss Hollywood.
the pack catches fire and explodes, turning Neville Sinclair into a fireball, smashing into the land portion of the Hollywood sign. So he did miss Hollywood after all. And I gotta say, that is one of the best death scenes for a villain I've ever seen in a film. For me, this film is a lot of fun, and it is perfect to stick on a lazy Sunday afternoon, as it does hold a lot of rewatch value. I'd also say that this is somewhat of a grounded film, if you excuse the pun, as it's not one giant action set piece after another, although the end set piece is pretty grand with the destruction of the Nazi airship. This is also set up quite well earlier in the film, when there is a newsreel before a movie that explains that the Zeppelin is in America on a goodwill tour. Funny how that one turned out, eh? Although the visual effects of the time were quite limited, I do think that they add to the charm of this film. I'd take practical effects like in the Rocketeer over modern CGI any day of the week. I wouldn't say that it's a fairly complex story, and it is pretty simple and linear, but it is easy to get lost in it because it holds the attention of the viewers and is very engaging, or at least that's how I see it. Ultimately, I love going back to watch this film, and I was really excited to be able to discuss it today, and I cannot wait to show this to my kids in the years to come. I hope you've enjoyed this Throwback Thursday retrospective, and if you did, then we would really appreciate it if you can give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
I wish the rain would stop just once.
Can't rain all the time.